Let's do it. So I want to welcome everyone to today's Partner Positive webinar series, which is going to dive into how to make your Giving Day a year-round celebration, so day 366. A few kind of basics first and foremost, and if you don't mind moving to the next slide, Chris. I want to introduce the company that's helping coordinate these educational series, Neon One, whose mission is to change the world by empowering nonprofits to reach their full potential with the best nonprofit technology ecosystem. And in order to do that, we do it through a wide variety of ways. So next slide will help kind of explain the ways that we deliver that. So the Neon One ecosystem is a few different product lines that we have, business units as we call them. And so we're going to be actually tying some of the concrete lessons that Chris is going to unpack for how to engage people year-round with after your Giving Day through the lens of Neon CRM. So I'll actually be coming in at the end to talk about how does this apply practically into your donor management system, your CRM, things like that. But Neon One is actually a larger tapestry and ecosystem of technology. So we provide a bunch of different stuff. So Neon CRM, but then also Civicor actually does power Giving Days. So St. Louis Gives, which actually Chris helped them out a few months ago. That is one of ours, but we also power North Texas Giving Day, which is the largest Giving Day in the U.S., expected to bring in $50 million in one day. In actually just about a week from now. We also provide peer-to-peer fundraising through our premier platform Rallybound, which Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, Michael J. Fox Foundation uses, but also nonprofits of any size. And then for arts and ticketing organizations, we have a fantastic platform called Arts People that could be leveraged. And the thing about our approach here is that we want all of these things to interact, not only from a concrete way that data intersects between things. So for instance, peer-to-peer campaigns loading the data automatically into Neon CRM as an example. But also we want to curate the experience around consultants. So when an attendee who's already asked, like, how do you actually implement a Giving Day? These are things that from a technology standpoint we can answer, but then we also want to bring it to the next level and say, look, if you want to really like make an impact with your social media, we got to hook you up with a Giving Day guy. And that's when we have certified consultants, and that's what Chris Strub is actually going to help us with. We have some other folks joining us, so we'll actually just move on to the next slide to get to the meat and potatoes of today's presentation. But one piece of key housekeeping items before I hand it on over to Chris. First and foremost, this is being recorded, so if you have to leave early, we're not going to be offended. We completely understand. But for a bunch of you who might be viewing this later, we record these, so you'll actually be able to find these at our dedicated partner channel that we have for Neon One. So every single Partner Positives webinar that we do is going to be loaded into a YouTube channel, and we're covering all sorts of great things. So not only is Chris going to be unpacking some really, really wonderful stuff, but we're going to be talking to experts in peer-to-peer fundraising, client case management, because we also offer that. Just data hygiene, landing page optimization, and more. These are a lot of wonderful things that we love to unpack, and we'll also be getting into the nuts and bolts of even how to run a solid nonprofit organizationally as well with some of our experts. And we'll be following up too. We're going to give you an opportunity to learn more information, and our experts will be able to be here and help you, as well as Chris if you're interested in learning about his services. So with that said, Chris, I'm going to put myself on mute. I'll pop in later when it comes to the practical ways we can take the lessons you're going to unpack here, but the show's all yours, my friend.
Great. Tim, I want to say thank you so much for that kind introduction. Your wonderful opening act, and it was great to see you a couple weeks ago at the first Nonprofit Social Media Summit in Boston, up with Julia and the team from CauseVid and Neon One. So thank you very much for sponsoring that event a couple weeks ago. So today we're going to talk a bit about what I call Day 366, which is the day after your big day. So for so many nonprofits out there, we're spending all of this time, this attention, this energy building toward your giving day, whether it's this week in Louisville, whether it's sometime this fall, sometime in the spring, whenever it might be. And actually, even if you're listening to this webinar and you're working with another kind of fundraising event, I think a lot of the lessons that we're going to talk about will still apply for you to be able to take that momentum and move the ball forward with that. A couple quick things just about me. I know Tim mentioned a little bit about me, but again, my name is Chris Strubb. You can find me across social media at Chris Strubb. I'm very accessible on Twitter. That's actually how Tim and I met, so it's a great place to connect. I've worked with more than 100 nonprofits in all 50 U.S. states, including my signature journey, which was to all 50 U.S. states in 100 days in the summer of 2015. Wrote a book called 50 States, 100 Days, the book, and there's a film by the same name now as well. As Tim mentioned, I have worked over the last few years with Giving Days. He mentioned Give STL Day in St. Louis. I worked with the Big Give in San Antonio. And coming up this week is my third year working with Give for Good Louisville, which did $5.4 million last year. So some big time days around the country. I'm also a full-time social media speaker. So I've spoken at Social Media Marketing World 2019. I'll be back in San Diego in 2020. Which we'll be officially announcing on Monday. But I've spoken at a whole lot of other social media conferences. So if we've met somewhere around the country, that's probably where you know me from. And so when I work with Giving Days, again, around the country, we spend a lot of time talking about your social media strategy on the Giving Day itself and in the lead up to your Giving Day. My biggest point of emphasis with every Giving Day is that really you need to be all hands on deck. Right, your voice, your volume should be maxed out on your Giving Day, because not just for you as an organizing organization or for you as an individual nonprofit, this is your Super Bowl. This is your Christmas Day. This is your biggest day to succeed. The team in Louisville has done a great job of embracing that theme over the years. And I think every Giving Day should really embrace that and say, look, this is our day to shine. You should have an influencer strategy of some kind, engaging them and inspire them to share on your behalf. And of course, you should be sharing content across all of your different social media channels. We'll talk today about Instagram, Twitter, of course, Facebook. And I work, as the Giving Day primarily on Facebook Live. But there are other channels as well: LinkedIn, YouTube, Snapchat, TikTok. And all of these channels are places where people are trying to talk with you and talk to you about their excitement for your Giving Day and for your cause, particularly on this day. So there really is, I got to remember, I have all these animated GIFs in there now. They'll keep spinning as we click through. There is so much conversation being pushed your way that Tim and I decided that this webinar should really be focused on what happens when the dust settles. What happens when the smoke clears and you need to really think about what to do after your Giving Day ends. Right? So of course, we know, working in the nonprofit space, the importance of expressing gratitude to your donors. And Tim will be able to touch on that a little bit more as well. But of course, it's paramount to personally thank your donors. I'm not here to tell you that anything that we're going to be talking about today should replace these mechanisms of writing a letter or making a phone call, especially to some of those bigger ticket donors. But I do think that there is more to be done on that gratitude front after those personal expressions. So we're going to talk a little bit about broad expressions of gratitude. How can your nonprofit position itself, not just to thank people individually, but also to thank the community and to thank the donors at large, and really show yourself and your organization as an organization that's dedicated, bigger picture, to gratitude, even if it's not signed, sealed, delivered in the mail. We're going to talk about picking up the pieces across social media. We're going to find all of those crumbs out there. You want to use whatever metaphor you want, but we're going to find all of those examples of people talking about your brand, talking about your nonprofit on social media. And I'll show you exactly how to clean that up and really get that all into one place. And then I'm going to briefly touch on how you can embark on telling a new storytelling journey, which is just as important, because, hey, day 366 at the end of the day is really day one towards the path towards your next Giving Day. And so there's your Jimmy Fallon GIF. Again, like I said, nothing is really ever going to replace those sort of handwritten expressions of gratitude. A lot of your donors may be donating. We talk a lot about how a lot of donors on the Giving Day are new to your organization, but there may be donors who are giving on a year-to-year basis, or heck, even a decade-to-decade basis. They may be very well accustomed to those more traditional mechanisms of gratitude that you're used to over the years. And so I'm not recommending that you replace, at least at this point, maybe we talk in 10, 20 years when social media is the only thing. But for now, I think these traditional expressions of gratitude, writing a letter, all of these things that you would do on an ordinary basis are still important, and I encourage you to stick with that. But I do think it's very important to use your social media channels, not just on a personal basis, but to use them, and I use the pin metaphor here, the push pin on the corkboard there, to say thank you. And a lot of you guys already do this, of course. I find a lot of times, the event hashtag, the Give for Good Lou, or the hashtag Give STL Day will be littered that night and then the following morning with thank you so much for all of your thank you for all of your donations. I really encourage you, though, to remember this pin metaphor and think about how you can, on Facebook and on Twitter, pin a post to the top of your page so that everyone who is coming to see your organization and see what you have to say will see that first. So if you're sending out other tweets, maybe you're retweeting the story from the newspaper in St. Louis, or a television story about the successes that the community had with your giving day, you still want to lead with this expression of gratitude. And you can go right on Twitter. When you go to your own Twitter profile, you can actually click on any one of your tweets and you can scroll right down to pin this post to my profile, and you'll be able to actually literally pin a post to the top of the page. Same thing on Facebook. I suspect you're probably more familiar with how that works. But again, when people are coming to your Facebook page, you want them to see that first. On a secondary level, you can also consider changing your header pictures, even your profile picture, across all of these different channels to say thank you. Use some balloons. Take a picture with your staff, hold up your cardboard sign or your thermometer that shows all the progress that you guys made on that day, that shows exactly how much success your donors have helped you drive on this giving day or on this special event that you guys are putting together. And I want you, before I move on from this slide, to consider using language in these posts that sparks additional conversations. You're going to see a lot of that with my Giving Day work this week in Louisville, that we're really going to be not so much trying just to tell people. Everybody says, oh, Chris, we know you as a storyteller. But really, we want to push for that engagement. That engagement is really critical, because the more people that comment, the more people that like, and ultimately the more people that share what you're putting out there, the more that's going to spread into the newsfeed, and you start to dip into that really valuable organic reach that has become so difficult to find here in 2019. So the more you can encourage people with a question in your post, right? You have 280 characters now on Twitter to tell maybe why they donated to your organization on that day. Same thing on Facebook. If you donated, why did you choose to donate to us is a great example of pushing that conversation forward and inviting people to be part of the conversation even after your day ends. But I do think it's very, very important to pick up the pieces as well. After your giving day, your organization will be inundated with interactions across, again, not just Facebook, not just Twitter, but I really want to use our time today to kind of help explain why it's important to look across all of the different channels and find people that are wanting to reach out to you. A lot of organizations tell me that, I signed up for a Twitter account in 2012, 2013, and then I never really used it. The key is, it doesn't necessarily matter how you are using it. It matters how the people that are trying to communicate with you are using it. So when you use a platform like Civicor, you make a donation, you're going to be able to share out the fact that you made that donation. There's little share buttons, Facebook, Twitter. You want people to be tagging your organization in hopes that others who are following that hashtag conversation and who are within those people's personal networks will also feel inspired to get up and donate to you as well. And so when you're there, of course, you'd love to do this in real time, do this on day 365, do it on your giving day itself. If someone tweets, ooh, just donated to the United Way of St. Louis, Ideally, you're able to have that notification pop up on your cell phone or on your TweetDeck, wherever you're getting notifications. Maybe it's Buffer, Hootsuite, Agora Pulse, where you can reply immediately. But on day 366, in many cases, you're going to find just a pile of these notifications just waiting for you. And I use that phrase on the slide, leave no comment untouched, right? I want you to think about how important it is, not just to, again, send that follow-up email or send that handwritten postcard or send that letter. But if someone is tweeting to you, they're likely to be surprised. They're likely to be thrilled to hear back that you took the time to engage and really pay attention to what they're saying on social media. The other real key for you here is going to be to listen to the conversations that are taking place more broadly about the giving day itself. So we all know on Twitter kind of how to look at our own notifications, looking at at people that are trying to speak to us. But I want you to consider creating a separate tab, maybe on TweetDeck, or doing a search on Twitter or even on Facebook or on Instagram for your Giving Days hashtag, and then proactively engage with those people that are talking just broadly about the Giving Day. We know with all the data at Tim's fingertips from Civicor and some of the other competing organizations that there's a large portion of new donors that come in on these Giving Days because of the media exposure, because of the billboards, because of the TV ads, because of the conversations that are taking place on social media. Those are oftentimes people who don't know who to donate to. They're looking for organizations that they prefer, and oftentimes just one little touch point can make that difference where you say, oh, I'd love to learn more about your organization. What's your website? What do you do? What's your mission? How can I support you? Sometimes it's the littlest things, even just liking somebody's tweet that is about a Giving Day, even if they're not talking about you, could be the difference between them donating to you next year, or heck, even during the course of the rest of the year, or donating to somebody else. So leave no comment untouched means definitely don't leave any comments untouched when they're trying to speak directly to you. But also, don't be afraid to look at those organizations and look at those people that are interacting with, let's say, the St. Louis Community Foundation, and jump in and like their comment, or send a smiley face, or send a GIF. These are all interactions that can really lead to additional donations at the end of the day. I want you to consider the concept of screenshot awesome. And I talk a lot about this in all of the different social media conferences that I work at, that I speak at around the country. As you start sorting through your social media notifications for the day, I want you to remember that, yes, there is sort of this ephemeral nature to some of these pieces of content. I wish I could stop this GIF, by the way. Sorry, there you go. You get it. Screenshot awesome. There is an ephemeral nature to something on Twitter or on an Instagram story or even on Facebook, right? That even on a platform where content lives on forever, that content tends to disappear from our consciousness over the next day or two, or especially the next week. You can take control of that by using this concept called Screenshot Awesome, which is literally to take screenshots of people and their comments that they're making about your organization. So when you post your big video, you unveil your recorded video, or you go live on Facebook, and people are jumping in to support you because you said, okay, we're going to do a Facebook Live today at 4 p.m. All of our donors, we want you to come join us. And you get 13 comments on your Facebook Live. Every single one of those comments could be another piece of content for you in the days, the weeks, the months to come, to remind all of your supporters, to remind your audience in the lead up to next year's Giving Day why they should be supporting you. And when you start to take on a thought process like this of the cyclical nature of it, you're going to be able to take that user-generated content, and a comment is user-generated content, and use that as part of your own content strategy moving forward. You can save these actual screenshots, or you can save these comments that people are providing to you on your desktop or in a folder on your iPhone, your Android, and you're going to be able to use that content throughout the remainder of the year as evidence that these donors and these social media supporters are really emotionally invested in their decision to make these donations to you on your giving day. And I think, there's that GIF again. I think you of course, you want to start with Facebook, right? I always recommend that every nonprofit strategy, and I've yet to find a really great example otherwise. On your giving day, your social media strategy probably should still start with Facebook. We'll revisit this conversation a year or two from now, as Instagram continues to grow. But remember, Instagram is owned by Facebook. So we're talking about, Bud and Bud Light, to stick with our St. Louis metaphor. So start by keeping up with your, I see Tim is shaking his head at me, but start by keeping track of all of the comments that are coming in, and go through post by post or video by video and reply to each and every comment. And, I think at the very least, I say here on the slide, you want to at least like every comment, unless it's something derogatory or negative. Now, I'll tell you, in my years of working with giving days, and Tim will probably nod his head and agree with me, you're really not going to find a lot of negativity on these social media channels when it comes to giving days. This is a very, very overall positive experience. So really, you're going to see a lot of this positivity. But like I was saying before, you're able to keep on pushing that conversation through by actually paying attention to what people are saying to you, right? So go through. Liking somebody's comment sends them a notification that you're still paying attention. And then, like I was saying before, if you're able to keep that conversation going by posing a question, something along those lines, if those people are open to engaging with you, that attention is what is really going to keep them engaged with you after day 366. So don't underestimate the importance of, again, like our giving day is over. Maybe you might go have an adult beverage or two. You want to give your staff the morning off the next day. I get it. It's fine. But also remember that as that temperature starts to cool with your donors, that a comment a week later or 2 weeks later isn't going to be nearly as valuable to the person that made that initial comment as it would be the next morning or the next afternoon. This is why we call it day 366 and not week 53. I love Twitter. Twitter, I have to admit, is my favorite social media network. And when you bring in an audience like this, when you do a presentation like this, you may be listening, live now or on replay and just kind of shaking your head. Maybe you're zoning out because I moved on from Facebook and you're like, oh, well, we don't focus on Twitter. Well, I'll tell you a quick story. Real quick, I would not be giving this webinar right now if it wasn't for Twitter. And if it wasn't for social listening on Twitter, because that's how I happened to meet Mr. Tim Sarantonio from Neon One, and we've been able to build that relationship here moving forward. I think that the real value of Twitter, and I presented on Twitter last year at Social Media Marketing World, and this was the major thrust of that presentation as well. If you missed that, here it is in a nutshell. Think of Twitter as a way to build individual one-on-one relationships publicly. If people are tweeting to you about how much they appreciate your organization, about why they donated to you, Twitter is going to give you that incredibly valuable opportunity to build that relationship one-to-one, but to do it in a way that shows everyone else who is quietly following you on social media that you are a generous and engaging and gratitude-focused organization. This goes back to what I was talking about before about using that pinned post across your social media channels. Well, it's not just the pinned post. It's the fact that people can look and see. They can see all of your replies. So if you get 7 people that tweet to you on your giving day, because they hit that Twitter button, on that Civic Core page at the end of the day, and they tweeted out, ooh, just donated to the Boys and Girls Club of St. Louis, bam. All of the other donors on social media are going to see that you are one of those few organizations that's standing out, that's actually taking the time to engage. I spend an extraordinary amount of time on Twitter, and it's led to major dividends for me because all of these people that I'm communicating with on a regular basis are those who I am building strong relationships with, and I'm bound to see them at conferences, or maybe they'll hire me for a giving day or to give a presentation somewhere. Like, those relationships are what matter most. We're not reinventing the wheel with relationship building. We're just doing it now in a digital sense. So don't be afraid to walk through your Twitter mentions one by one and respond individually to each and every person that's out there. I do this every day. I call it Twitter and treadmill. Tim knows sometimes I'll be on the treadmill for 2 hours at a time, and my timeline will have hundreds of tweets on it, but 90% of those tweets will be directed individually towards those people that are trying to get my attention. And it's been a great, great way for me to build relationships in both a public and a private fashion. Don't be afraid to retweet as well. Way too many organizations, including some of the bigger brands that I've worked with, like maybe even here in Louisville, are afraid to retweet. And just, I never really understood that concept. If people are talking positively about you, you shouldn't be afraid to retweet at all. Twitter is not Facebook. Twitter is not Instagram. Twitter is a place where your content has such a short shelf life that a retweet isn't really going to clog people up from seeing everything else that they're seeing. It is definitely okay to retweet a whole bunch of things all at once, especially if they're the sort of thing that, like we were talking about a minute ago, that you want to screenshot awesome. Why? As my friend Bella Vasta says all the time, be the destination. Think about how people who are coming to your social media channels to learn about you are seeing what you're creating. Don't worry so much about clogging people's news feeds. Think about, okay, I want to go to the Humane Society of, I want to learn more about the Humane Society of St. Louis. And I use Twitter all the time. I may not go to their website. And I may not go to their Facebook page. I might go to your Twitter account. And when I go to that Twitter account, if I see that you are actively engaging and you're listening, and you, as Brian Fanzo would say, you show that you care, then you're going to be bound to get more people that want to interact and engage with you, give you their attention, and ultimately open up their wallet to you. And definitely, even if you don't want to retweet a lot, use that favorite button generously. It is more than okay to tap that heart button on every single interaction that you get, because again, you're signaling to those people that are communicating with you that you're listening. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's really all this social media thing is about, is showing people that you're listening to what they have to say about you and what they're trying to learn from you. I'm going to take a quick sip here, Tim. Here's my retweet gif. Lemonade is good. And I encourage you, as I was saying, this kind of rehashes what I was just touching on a minute ago, to tweet above and beyond. So take advantage of using Twitter's open platform to find more donors for the future. I have an example there of a tweet, and it says, it is #GiveSTL today, like going to the candy store, except donating and doing good in the community, #St. Louis. Now, I don't know Linda Austin, and I don't own a nonprofit in St. Louis. But my goodness, if I did, that tweet is basically this woman holding up a sign over her head that says, I am waiting for you to tweet me back to tell me about how awesome your organization is and why I should donate to you. She literally used the phrase like going to the candy store. This is a perfect example of a donor using #GiveSTL Day to say, I'm here looking to donate to new organizations. I want to try this candy. I want to try this candy. That type of tweet, and there's examples of like this on Facebook, on Instagram, on all of these different social media channels. This kind of tweet is exactly the kind of example that represents someone just holding up their wallet to you and saying, look, like, I want to donate to you. Just give me your attention for a split second. Let's have a brief conversation. And then because it is GiveSTL Day, because I feel compelled by the gravity of this brand, by the simplicity of the CivicCore platform, by the billboards and everything happening, in the phone booths and all of this stuff all over the community, in the newspapers, on TV, people want to give on these giving days. They're looking for your attention. So if you can squeeze in being able to do this on day 365, do it. But on day 366, Linda Austin is the sort of tweeter that is out there looking for new organizations to support. And by taking this proactive action, you're going to be able to take advantage of those opportunities to drive more dollars from that arbitrary pool of new donors into your own coffers there. I encourage you strongly to retweet and respond to the Central Giving Day organization / foundation. So, here in Louisville, that's the Community Foundation of Louisville. In St. Louis, it's Give STL Day. Those organizations, I can promise you, because I'm in the war room with these guys, they are spending every bit of their attention. They have a content strategy all day long where they're trying to get their message out as well. So just join in. This is as simple as it gets. Just retweeting what Give STL Day has to say on their giving day can be a great way to get the attention of, again, these potential new donors that are out there listening to the conversation. I love using the 99-1 rule. I talked about this at the Nonprofit Social Media Summit, but the 99-1 rule says that when brands put content out there, 90% of people that consume that content are not going to take any social action from it. They're not going to reply. They're not going to retweet. They're not going to click like. But they are listening. We have the data. We know how many impressions tweets are getting. We know how long people are watching videos for, how much they're listening to on podcasts. And so when you put your voice out there, you never know who is actually seeing that content, except for Instagram, which we'll get to in a second. You never know who is actually going to see that content or who is going to show your content to, that potential large donor in their own corporate office somewhere in your city. And again, I can't overestimate the importance of this on Twitter. Doing a search for your Giving Days hashtag and engaging proactively with that general conversation. I mean, you could really take it to the next step and you could really go guerrilla marketing. I don't know that this is really the place to do something like that, where you see Wendy's replying to people that are tweeting to McDonald's and Burger King, stuff like that. Like, I don't know that I would recommend really trying to poach donors who are talking about other organizations. I think this is really a place for you to maybe tweet supportively and to maybe even retweet some of your fellow nonprofits in your own community and earn that social capital where they want to come back and do the same thing for you. Oh, sorry, I had my finger on the wrong button there. Did I miss something here? Oh, sorry, I'm just steering. Sorry, I was up early this morning. I want you to tweet above and beyond as well. So you can use TweetDeck to search for key phrases that are not your organization's hashtag or handle, like Arizona Gives instead of hashtag AZGivesDay, right? We spend all of this time trying to push the idea of using the hashtag, but it's amazing how much more you may be able to find out there if you are just doing a more general search for, maybe the phrase Arizona donated or Arizona giving or Phoenix gives, or instead of thinking about what you think that central message is and only speaking in that language, put yourself in the shoes of a donor who doesn't have that intimate familiarity with the brand and with the broader conversation, and think about where you might be able to look to find those conversations that are taking place outside of the broader conversation. This is a great example of it. Again, this tweet from Trot, Arizona. This is a quote from one of our clients who's a veteran. You still have time for Arizona Gives Day and help people like this. So if you were only doing a search for hashtag AZ Gives Day, you would not have found this tweet. But if you just do a search for Arizona Gives Day, you're going to be able to find other conversations that are taking place parallel to and around your day. Don't forget about this idea of screenshot awesome. I just repeated this slide for emphasis, that if you see great tweets, one of the running jokes with Twitter is, that Instagram is really just a bunch of screenshots of Twitter. That's a great idea. You're going to be able to use those tweets on your Instagram account, on even your Facebook page, or maybe even build them into a more highly produced video about your organization and its social media impact in the year to come. I do encourage you to prioritize Instagram. I think this is a floaty GIF. There you go. So I want you to respond to every comment that's left on your post. Again, same idea, same principle as Facebook. You know, you really don't want to leave any comments untouched. I encourage you to do a hashtag search for your Giving Day hashtag. So when you do that, you're going to be able to find on your grid there, you're going to see all of the different posts. You can sort by either top posts or most recent posts. And you'll be able to see all of the conversations that are taking place specifically around the Giving Day. But you can also look at the Instagram story that is taking place around, let's say, Give STL Day. That's going to pop up in a bubble in the top left-hand corner of your screen on Instagram. And you're going to be able to see people talking in real time and using that vertical video format. People talking about or posting screenshots or posting little videos about their efforts and their donations on the Giving Day. So don't forget to not only keep track of what's on your Instagram grid, but also what's on your Instagram story. If you're really bought into Instagram, I encourage you, you can check out my YouTube channel. I've done a whole bunch of how-to videos on how to do a lot of this stuff. I have a whole playlist there as well. So if you do want to really dive deeper into the how-tos of Instagram, you'll be able to find that stuff over on my Instagram, on my YouTube channel, or at learnigstories.com. And I encourage you to make sure you have a story in your highlights about your Giving Day efforts. One second. So when you post to Instagram about, oh, how successful and how wonderful, and thank you to all my donors, they'll show up in your grid, and that's great. But we're also seeing a tremendous rise in the attention that's being paid to Instagram stories. Your Instagram story disappears from the news, from the so-called news feed, the stories feed, after 24 hours. But if you use Instagram highlights, you're going to be able to keep that highlight pinned to your profile forever and ever until next year. And when you start to think about this on a year-to-year basis, if you can even go back and find some content from, depending on how many years you've been doing this, you might have some great photos or even some videos from 2016, 17, 18, 19, and next year 2020. Now you can create this whole collection right there on Instagram, so people don't even have to leave the platform to be able to see what you're up to on Instagram. You can also do a location-based story search to see if there's relevant content for your Giving Day. So you can look up, the example that I have here on my screen is good old Rockford, Illinois, where I spoke at the Social Rock Conference a couple months ago. So shout out to my friend Lauren Davis. But you see in the top left-hand corner of the screen there, that bubble, you can see that story. So if you click on that story, and I think is this a video? I think this is a video here on my presentation. Oh, no, I didn't embed the video. But when you click on that little circle up there, no matter what your location is, Tim could search for the Adirondacks. And when you click on that circle with the little I am here type logo, you're going to be able to see what people are talking about in your community. There's an excellent chance that later this week for the Louisville, Kentucky story, that people will be talking about Give for Good Louisville, and we're going to be making sure that we keep an eye on that story as well. Remember, again, from the Day 366 concept, you can apply all of these lessons on the Giving Day itself if you have the time and resources, but from Day 366 forward, this is going to be a great opportunity for you to understand who those local influencers are that want to talk about you and support you. Oh, this is a video. There you go. So you can see how I tapped on the little bubble, and this is a collection, an unfiltered collection of stories that come up. And I do not know if the audio is playing through this presentation or not. Tim and I are kind of learning Zoom as we go, but we'll pause the video here. You get the idea that it's people tagging their posts on Instagram using that location, Rockford, Illinois, and that is available anywhere you go. You can also consider using an app like Giant Square to create photos that really stand out. So you can see there's a screenshot of my Instagram page, 50 States, 100 Days, which is my secondary Instagram that talks about my book. And you can see there a a 9-way grid post about Youth on Their Own, which is one of the organizations that I visited during my trip. They are also a proud participant of Arizona Gives, one of Civicor's lovely giving days each year. And you can see how that grid post really stands out when people are coming to look specifically at your page. And when we think about when people are making a decision as to whether or not they want to donate to you, they're going to come look at your entire channel. When they see that you're doing something that really stands out, like using Giant Square, you can be the destination and really wow people to not even want to look beyond your Instagram page, to just jump straight to the donation link and go and donate to you right away. We're coming up on the end here. I know we're not going long. I think we're doing pretty good on time. But you can embark on a new storytelling journey based on what you're seeing from your giving day on day 366. Of course, you want to leverage the data collected to show your total impact. So add up the number of tweet mentions that you have. Add up the number of comments that you got across all of your different social media channels. Add that up and then put that into a post to say, here is the depth, here is the scope of the wave. Andrew and Pete would say the attention spike that your organization created as part of this giving day. I really do want you to commit to consistency, right? So as you're evaluating what you want to create towards next year's giving day, think about how others would describe what you do on social media. Do people just say, oh yeah, I like them on Facebook? Or can they say, oh yeah, this, the YMCA in St. Louis brings us into their office once a month for a live stream video, the first Friday of every month, to have a conversation with, a Q&A with the CEO. And so when people tell others about that on social media, now you're inviting them in to join you on that regular basis. Consistency does not equal frequency. We get so caught up sometimes with wanting to create more content on social media. We think sometimes that more is better, but actually consistency is better. Quality is better. And making sure that you give people an opportunity to understand what you're doing on a consistent basis. That is going to be your key to success on your new storytelling journey. Don't be shy to use video to bring your stories to life. Again, I spoke at length about this at the Nonprofit Social Media Summit a couple weeks ago in Boston. Video is everything. That's why I encouraged him. I was like, hey man, let's use video on this webinar because I want you to see the passion that I bring to these lessons, right? If you're watching this webinar, I bet you your eye is going back and forth between the slides and watching me talk today, because you can see that I'm actually here and not just, falling asleep or reading from my notes. Like, video allows you the closest thing until we redo this webinar in 5 years, Tim, and we talk about virtual reality goggles. Live streaming video, Instagram stories, all of that type of content is what's going to inspire people to want to connect with you person to person, human to human, as Brian Kramer would say, right? So if you are really emphasizing building those relationships one-to-one, then people will want to communicate with you, and ultimately they'll want to donate to your organization because they feel like they know you. And if I didn't mention this enough already throughout the course of this presentation, make your one big takeaway today to screenshot awesome. Take a screenshot of the good things that people are saying about you, and don't be shy to repurpose that stuff into your social media content strategy moving forward. That's pretty much all I have for now, Tim. I don't know if you want to knock off your mute thing. Again, there's your little recap slide there. But that's pretty much what I got, and I hope you guys have gotten something out of listening and being here today.
Awesome. Yeah, that was great, Chris. That was great. I think there was a lot of practical things in terms of how to use social media, but just, the ways that in some things are evolving when it comes to how people interact with each other, and then some things are just the same as they've always been. And so what I'd like to do at this point is what I'm going to do is pop on over on my end and actually show a little bit of how we can practically apply the lessons that Chris has talked about into a platform like Neon CRM. So Neon CRM is a cloud-based system that serves thousands of nonprofits, and a lot of times people might be loading their giving day data into the CRM after the day. So as a best practice, one of the things that you should be doing is, of course, getting that data as soon as you receive it in either a format like a report or something like that, or maybe there's a direct integration like what Neon CRM and Civicor are scoping out where that data gets loaded in, right? So getting that into the CRM is vital as quickly as possible for the same reasons that Chris talked about for engagement on social media. So day 366 should also have a dedicated component where your gifts entry person is using either an import tool or syncing things in depending on your platform. Now, even Neon CRM, you might be getting it from a different giving day platform other than what we have. That's perfectly fine. Use the import manager, get it in there. But from a structural standpoint, it's also important to properly tag the campaign itself. So if it's something like Arizona Gives, St. Louis Gives, something like that, Louisville, let's use Louisville as our example. We have Giving Tuesday in here. These are things that you should actually tag it to the campaign so you can actually log this properly and understand where they came from. Because even something in a system like Neon CRM, when you're actually logging the information, what's interesting is that it's going to show you the origin. So imagine this actually tagging it properly through an import. You know it's relating to that campaign. These are very important account details that will then be something that you can turn around and use for engagement. Now I want to take and this is actually, Chris, this isn't something that I was planning on originally, but you actually got me really thinking about this during your presentation in terms of what about the screenshot awesome? And so if you're going to the effort of taking the screenshots and then putting them in your social media, also go to the effort and logging that to the donor's record themselves if you have the capability. So
that's brilliant. That's really good.
Yeah, something like Neon CRM, it does actually track a person's social media information. So Abraham here, he's a little bit old school, Van Helsing. So we don't have his Facebook and Twitter logged here, but Neon allows people to actually authenticate their donor profiles for year-round giving with Facebook and Twitter. They can log in and update their recurring donations, their addresses, that type of stuff. But even if you just happen to know that this person has tweeted, you can go in and manually add that ID and then have that on record, right? So that's something that you can do. But even go over to the notes section, and actually what I think might be cool is create a type. So we have some, and we have old school things like scan articles. Why not create a custom type around social media, or call it Screenshot Awesome? And then you'd be able to actually run reports on these and actually leverage these, because don't forget, you might be getting Screenshot Awesome capabilities beyond the giving day, right? You might interact with somebody later on, and so the tag might be Screenshot Awesome, but then the title might be, yeah. Oh, I'm going to butcher the Louisville. Here, well, Louisville Gives, something like that, right? And then Twitter, you put some note text, but you can actually drop the file in here very quickly. And heck, what's actually even cool is that maybe you even want them to download it later on or something like that. You can actually allow them to give that direct engagement with the constituent portal that is provided. So that's an idea that I had. And a lot of this stuff is just simply going to be logged in the timeline. So being able to just see almost your own feed of the donor is something that we have actually built into the system itself, and you can even filter both on dates or those notes and activities that you have too. Now, I don't want to go Yeah, go ahead.
Can I jump in real quick with one quick thing?
Yeah.
I've gone through a lot of training on this platform, and it's fantastic. And the one thing that's turning my gears as you're saying all this too, and we've talked about this, is this intersectionality, is this balance between, these social media interactions and the quote unquote real life interactions or the letters, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so what if you saw a tweet, again, we want to stick with Abraham because he's on the screen here, but if Abraham sent you a nice tweet or commented on your Facebook page, you could go back and then send him a traditional letter that says, thank you for your kind comments on Facebook. Thank you
Absolutely.
for your awesome tweet, right? Or vice versa, right? You might be able to create some content for your social media channels that expresses gratitude to some of your donors who may not be present on social media. So I think there's a lot of really interesting opportunities there to go back and forth between the two.
I absolutely agree. And I would say ultimately, if I had a takeaway when it comes to how this type of stuff flows into your CRM, being respectful of the time and want to see if we had any questions, I would say that it's that old adage, if it's not in the CRM, it didn't happen, right? And so there's a lot of things that we can automate when it comes to that. And we're definitely working on the social media engagement tools for automation as well. But what I think is important is that even something like Screenshot Awesome, if you log it as a note, you'd be able to build audiences around that. You'd be able to literally build an email audience that says, why don't you check out the special grouping that we've done of all our, here's the Instagram grid. You send them to that and say, check out our Instagram page. We took all of the awesome things that people have done. Why don't you go check this out? Send it on email. Or even you can send these things through letter. Or you use an integration like CauseVid to do a donor thank you video that actually gets logged automatically as an activity to view the video at a later date, and you'd see it in here. So there's some really cool things that you can do. If you're interested, I definitely encourage you to, definitely have a chat with us about the types of automation tools that we have, especially things like workflows. That I actually was going to talk about workflows, but it's kind of fun to just talk about data entry from a really nerdy standpoint. But in regards to the Neon side, that's actually all I really wanted to talk about today. At this point, I want to open it up and see if we have any questions.
As well. We'll obviously be keeping an eye on this. And of course, we encourage you to check out the other webinars and things. I don't want to do the hard sell for you here, Tim, but certainly there'll be other resources made available to you if you enjoyed this presentation.
Yeah, I want to thank you, Chris, for the time that you spent today. For folks that attended today, we're going to be following up with some extra resources that we're excited to share with you. In general, if you're watching this recording at a later date, this is one of the things that we're going to have some resources embedded in the YouTube area. Definitely check out what Chris is doing when it comes to giving days. And this is something that we're really excited because he's helping both the nonprofit tell their story as well as the foundation. And really, that's kind of the key thing about a platform when you're building that experience. So that's what we're really grateful for your expertise.
Yeah. Thank you. And I'm not sure if my videos might be breaking up a little bit here at the end.
No,
I
you're pretty
apologize
good.
for that. I'm here at a hotel. But if you want to check out givingdayguy.com is kind of my homepage. If you're listening to this all the way through, you can learn more about my services and the way some case studies, some other blog posts and things that I've written about best practices from my perspective, having worked in the social media and the journalism industry for most of my adult life here. Some of the experiences that I've had with, the Giving Days St. Louis and some of the other markets that we've talked about. So Tim,
Awesome.
Thank you so much for making this happen today. I thought this went great.
Yep.
And I hope if you're listening as well that you got a lot out of this. So
awesome. All right. Thanks again. Have a good day, everyone. And thanks again, Chris. Have a great Giving Day for Louisville. It's going to be awesome because of your involvement.
We'll be screenshotting awesome all day, Tim. Thank you.
There you go. All right. Talk to you.